if I had 3 different history books that gave me 3 different timelines for, like, say, the assassination of John F. Kennedy or something like that. And in the one case, Lee Harvey Oswald was here at 12 o'clock, and then another time he was over there at 12 o'clock, and another time he was over there at 12 o'clock. I would either dismiss all 3 of them or want to know which one was right.
Good. And if you've got that kind of contradiction, you're right. We have a textual problem. But when you read the Gospels, you'll notice there is no such contradiction there.
Oh, what about the fig tree? Which
What about the fig tree?
It happens.
Yes, sir.
If it's true that God created everything and He's all-powerful, then why can't we, if He gave us the ability to create evil, then didn't He create evil Himself? I mean, if there's something we can create that God didn't, that seems kind of like a fallacy in Christianity.
Okay, great point. Is it not a fallacy of Christianity to insist that we human beings can really create? From my perspective, that's not a fallacy of Christianity, that's reality. You students here at this fine university benefit from the very wise decisions of people to put this institution of higher learning together. And you are the beneficiaries of it. You get to be students here and learn and grow your minds. But also you and I suffer from the irresponsible decisions that human beings have made. Study children of divorce. Study children of alcoholics. Obviously, we are scarred by the irresponsible decisions of our parents. I mean, what's it like to be an African American living in a culture that used to enslave your forefathers and foremothers? That's scary. That's some scarring that took place. And so the Bible reveals that we human beings have been given this incredible gift of free will and creativity, and we can cause things to happen. Things just don't happen because they have to. Slavery in the United States did not have to happen. It happened because of the sinfulness of the human heart. Rape does not have to happen. Rape happens because of the sinfulness of the human heart. CEOs and CFOs do not have to cook the books and lie so that the stock prices of their company will go up on Wall Street. They choose to do that. Other CEOs insist upon living lives of integrity and honesty and not cooking the books. So you and I had this incredible explosive gift from God of creativity. Have I answered you or not?
If that's God's gift of creativity to us, and we can cause good or evil, that's the power He gave us, and why would He first condemn us for exercising that right and then have to sacrifice His own Son?
Okay, great question. This gentleman's question is, but if God gave us this gift of creativity, why does He condemn us if we misuse the gift? Because we have a free will, we are responsible for the way we use the gifts entrusted to our care. So many of Jesus' parables in the New Testament are all about stewardship, responsible handling of the amazing gifts that God has entrusted to your care and to my care. In Matthew chapter 25, Jesus tells a parable of the talents about a landowner who was going to take a trip. He called his servants in. He entrusted 5 talents to one servant, 2 talents to another servant, and 1 talent to a third servant. He left for his trip. He returned from his trip. He called the servants to give an account of how they had used the talents. The guy who had been given 5 talents came in and said, "Here, sir, I've earned 5 more talents. Here's your 10 talents. The landowner said, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful in a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The man who had been given 2 talents came in and said, "Sir, I worked hard. Here are another 2 talents. 4 talents, here they are." And the landowner says the same thing to him that he said to the servant with 5 talents. He says, "Well done, good and faithful servant. You've been faithful with a few things. I will put you in charge of many things. Come and share your master's happiness." The dude who'd been given 1 talent came in. He said, "I knew you were a hard master, reaping where you've not sown. I went out and I buried the 1 talent you gave me. Here it is." The master looked at that servant and said, "You wicked, lazy servant. You know that I am a hard worker. You should have at least put my talent in the bank so that I could have received interest on it." And he took that talent away. And Jesus is pointing out that God has given all of us talents. Some of us have 5, some of us have 2, some of us, like me, have 1. But the point is, we are responsible for the way we use and invest those talents, because God has given us a free will. Jesus Christ bled and died on a cross because all of us have abused the talents that God has given us. And that's evil, and it leads to death and to hell. Jesus Christ bled and died on a cross to forgive us for our laziness, for our abusing the talents God gave us, and He wants to forgive us and to give us eternal life. But now we've got a free will, and that free will says, no thank you, Jesus, or that free will says, thank you, thank you, thank you. And that's what a Christian is. A Christian is someone who simply says, thank you, Jesus, for all you've given me. One of the saddest things about an atheist is a person who has nobody to say thank you to. That's sad.
My parents gave me the gift of life.
So you thank them. Okay, but where do you think life comes from? Do you think life comes from inanimate matter?
I don't understand your question.
Where does life come from? Obviously science, the science that you referred to, shows us that human beings have not always existed. So where does life come from?
You mean originally?
Yeah.
The primordial soup.
Okay, so what I hear you saying is life comes from non-life, primordial soup. Okay, now, how can I, based on the 48 years that I've had on this planet, observing plant life coming from plant life, animal life coming from animal life, and human life coming from human life, how can you expect me to believe that life comes from non-life in light of my observation for the past 48 years?
You only have 48 years. None of us was there when the world was created.
Right?
My faith is has just as much valid basis as yours.
Is it? Okay. Then please explain to me why you believe that life comes from non-life. You've told me life comes from primordial soup. Fine. But what's your evidence that that's true? Because when I look for evidence, all I see is life coming from life. I never see life come from non-life.
The primordial soup held the basic elements of life. They fused together. You could call it a coincidence. If you're a believer, you could call it the work of God, but they came together in the form of life.
Ma'am, give me one example that you and I can observe of life coming from non-life.
The same conditions don't exist anymore.
We can duplicate them.
How can we? We don't know what exactly they were. No one was there.
Right, but you're right. We probably can't do it exactly, but I mean, we could try to get as close as we can. And 100 times out of 100, ma'am, we have life coming from life. Never do we have life coming from non-life.
But you're still talking about now. I'm talking about thousands of millions of years ago.
Right.
When the world was completely different. None of us were here. There was nothing for life to come from but this. And the fact that life's here states that it had to have come from non-life, for my belief. I'm not trying to trample on your belief.
No, I understand, and I'm not trying to trample on yours. I appreciate this discussion immensely. You see, the question is it more reasonable to believe that life comes from non-life, or is it more reasonable to believe that life comes from life? In other words, is it more reasonable to believe that matter and energy are eternal, or is it more reasonable to believe that there's an eternal being, the Creator?
That depends on the person you are, I suppose, what it's more reasonable for you to believe.
Right, and that's why I've asked you, what is your evidence? Why do you believe that it's more reasonable to believe that life comes from non-life than it's reasonable for you to believe that life comes from life? I mean, obviously, I as a theist, I who believe in God, believe that life comes from God, a living being. Obviously, an atheist is someone who says, no, life does not come from a living being. Life comes from matter and energy. Boom. It all of a sudden generates, it starts. But you see, there's nothing in my experience. There's not a shred of evidence to support that. So why would I believe that?
But you're basing that on 48 years of experience and not 5 billion years.
Yes, that's right. But then what I have to do is I've got to study the history of humankind. And as I study history, I begin to realize Never in recorded history has life come from non-life.
Even if
Every
God
time
created
we have
life, what
life,
did he create it from?
Years.
If God created life, what did he create it from?
what did he create it from? Well, I would turn to science to answer that question, because the Bible never reveals the process that God used to
And
create.
you're still saying God created life from non-life. So you're saying life can be created from non-life, but only by God?
Only by an intelligent being. It's
Why
just
can't it just be created by a series of reactions?
because there's no evidence yet to support that.
The claim is, I think, not that they don't have real moral convictions, but that these do not necessarily represent facts about the universe. I mean, the fact that my conscience pangs me when I see something doesn't in itself dictate that that's a fact about the universe, that this is morally wrong. Now, I believe that, and perhaps we could say I couldn't help but believe that, but I don't understand how we can get from that stage to saying that it's true, it's a fact. No matter what the perspective, it's true.
Okay, and then my point to that moral relativist is, in light of the fact that your conscience convicts you so deeply that those certain things are really wrong, don't you think it's time to re-examine your relativism?
Well, I guess the claim is that my sort of strong feeling towards it, my firm belief, doesn't make it true. And you can't say then, well, if you believe it's strong enough, shouldn't you re-examine this and think maybe it's true? I mean, if I believe it, I think it's true, but I recognize that my believing it doesn't make it true.
Yeah, but my point is, if you really are convinced that murder and rape are absolutely wrong, then doesn't that force you to go back and ask yourself, aren't there real moral absolutes? Then doesn't that force you to ask yourself, who defines, who creates a moral absolute?
But being this absolutist person, when he comes to me and says, okay, you strongly believe that there's an absolute and that's led you back this path. I don't believe that this absolute, that my sort of strong feelings represent the absolutes, the facts. That I don't necessarily have access to the real moral facts. All I have is my conscience to go on. And history's shown that at least in certain occasions, my conscience has led me wrong. That which I've been motivated to do by what I would call conscience has turned out, maybe in retrospection, to be what I would later call wrong. And so, then what do I use to get at what's right and what's wrong? And doesn't that make me distrust conscience as an indicator of what that is?
Okay, you're right. Our consciences can get seared. We can rationalize evil and call it good. But just your experience, to some extent, maybe to a limited extent, your experience of a conscience informing you of what's right and what's wrong should drive you back to ask, is there a God who created justice, created real values? He gave me a conscience. Has God revealed a plumb line, a standard, that I can measure my conscience against? Obviously, that is what Moses claimed. Moses claimed that the Ten Commandments were a standard that God was revealing, that we should understand with our conscience, but because our consciences have been seared, we can measure our consciences up against a standard. The same thing with Jesus' Sermon on the Mount. Jesus is claiming, here is a standard, a plumb line, that you can measure your conscience against.
If it departs enough from what my previous conscience was and what the new plumb line says, then doesn't this undermine the original argument that my conscience was a clue to the ultimate reality of the universe? I mean, at this point, then I say, this conscience has led me to believe in God, but the conscience I've shown maybe time and time again to be wrong. Then why does that not undermine the original argument that this conscience led me to the belief in God?
Because what you've got to acknowledge is you also have a free will. And with your free will, you can sear your conscience. You also grew up in a culture, in a society filled with sinful people. And they miscommunicated to you and they taught you wrong things. And obviously that has profound impact on a child growing up. What mom and dad teach me. And if mom and dad teach me to be racist, can I get to the point where my conscience is so seared where I think that racism is good? Yes, it can.
You can jump to the other conclusion and say that, oh, he came back to life. I mean, where's the basis of that?
Okay, good. The basis of that is, first of all, he didn't just swoon. He just didn't lapse into unconsciousness. He really died on that cross. Now, the way we know that is Because in the Gospel of John, John records an interesting tidbit of information. He records how a Roman soldier pronounced Jesus dead, but then he took a spear, jammed it into his side, and watery serum separate from clotted blood flowed from the side of Christ. Massive heart failure, clotting of the arteries, the man was dead. Then we read that very deliberately they took his body off the cross, put it in a tomb, the tomb of Joseph of Arimathea, rolled a stone in front, and set a Roman guard to make sure that nobody would steal the body of Christ. All of Christ's followers were not true believers. They were Christ deniers, Christ betrayers, Christ deserters. They were a bunch of wimps. And they run in fear. 3 days after he's put in that tomb, he appears risen from the dead to whom? To some women. Did you know that in first century Palestinian culture, women were not allowed to testify in court? Sexism is bad today. In the first century, it was horrendous. Women were not even allowed to testify in court. But I love the authenticity of the Gospels as Christ appears risen from the dead, first of all to some women. Then over a period of 40 days, he appears to over 500 people at different times in different places, risen from the dead. But there's one guy that I really appreciate. His name is James. Little discussion over the ossuary recently found about did that ossuary really contain the bones of James, the brother of Jesus? This James is the younger brother of Jesus. Before Jesus dies, does James believe that Jesus is God in human form? I mean, think about it. My older brother is God in human form. What a joke. No, James did not believe. But James became, as Josephus, the Jewish historian, writes, one of the leaders in the first century church. What happened to James? Well, he saw his dead brother risen from the dead. Christ appeared to James, and James, understandably, converted. Put his faith in Christ, became a leader in the first century church. So the evidence is that Jesus was stone dead, he was buried, 3 days later he rose from the dead, and over a period of 40 days appeared to over 500 people, Paul writes in 1 Corinthians 15, risen from the dead. Sure.
How do you account for the discrepancy in the last week of Jesus Christ's life in Matthew, Luke, and John? I mean, the timeline of what happened in the last week is totally different in each story. Which one's right?
Answer to that.
Well, I think it's real simple. Whenever you read, just take any 4 American history books. Read them.
Well, yeah, but the
They're not
American history
carbon
books
copies.
don't claim to be coming from the absolute truth.
But that's not the claim. I'm not asking you guys to sit here and say, oh yeah, I think the Bible's the Word of God. That's not what you guys have to accept.
I've already had it explained.
All right.
I want to hear what he has to say.
Well,
Ma'am, please, just let it. He asked a very thoughtful question. So, sir, I'm not asking you to accept the Bible as the Word of God, all right? I'm just simply asking you to accept the Gospels of Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John as history, reliable history. Ask yourself, what does the historical evidence point to regarding Jesus of Nazareth?
Well, if I had a history book that gave me, if I had 3 different history books that gave me 3 different timelines for, like, say, the assassination of John F. Kennedy or something like that. In the one case, Lee Harvey Oswald was here at 12 o'clock, and then another time he was over there at 12 o'clock, and another time he was over there at 12 o'clock. I would either dismiss all 3 of them or want to know which one was right.
Good. And if you've got that kind of contradiction, you're right. We have a textual problem. But when you read the Gospels, you'll notice there is no such contradiction there.
Oh, what about the fig tree? Which happens
What about
in
the
3
fig
different,
tree?
It happens, the Christ approaches the fig tree and says 3 different things in 3 different places at 3 different times in the 3 different Gospels.
All right.
I mean, that's
First
like
point is, obviously, when you read the Gospels, one thing you'll notice is they're not claiming to give a precise chronological account. Why? Because you notice that Matthew and Luke lump parables together.
Bring it on.
And then they've got different historical narrative sections, and then they got parables. Second point is, it's very possible that Jesus told the same story on several occasions. It's very possible that Jesus used an illustration of a fig tree on several occasions. You don't have a contradiction there.
These are all report to be eyewitness accounts by the 3 said apostles.
Yes, but there's an intent of the author. There are themes that the author emphasizes.
Well, how am I to discern which parts of the Bible are literary intents of the author and which ones I should take as anything close to the truth?
Well, you better study literary style. And if it's historical narrative, you better read it as historical narrative. If it's parable, you better read it as parable. If it's a poem, you better read it as poetry. You better respect the literary style employed by an author. When Jesus says, I'm the light of the world, it's not fair to interpret that as meaning he claims to be a 100-watt light bulb. You've got to allow him to use metaphor, simile, allegory. So, in the Gospels, you'd better study the historical narrative parts. You better also allow Jesus to use parable and respect the different literary devices.
Okay, that view does go against, I don't know, 1,800 years of what the Catholic Church has been saying up until this point. Can you justify this sudden acceptance of metaphoric and literary interpretism?
Sure. Just go back to Augustine. He lived in the 300s. In his commentary on Genesis, Augustine points out that he doesn't think Genesis chapter 1 is talking about 6 24-hour periods. He thinks it's talking about 6 periods of time, not necessarily 24 hours. That's Augustine, who wrote in the mid-300s. Augustine was smart. He studied the literary style of Genesis chapter 1. And he saw that the literary style of Genesis chapter 1 is poetry. And therefore Augustine was open to maybe God created in 6 24-hour periods, maybe he created in 6 1-minute periods, maybe he created in 6,000 years periods. Genesis chapter 1 doesn't answer the question.
So where's the line? Like, what if I say by thou shalt not kill, I interpret that as thou not shalt kill my friends, and I can go ahead and kill strangers. I mean, where does this ambiguousness work for? It seems to work well for you in your interpretation, but what if I pick up the book and come up with a different interpretation and we conflict?
Then you better challenge me, and I better challenge you, and we better search for truth together and seek to understand why do you interpret the commandment, thou shalt not kill, which is clearly referring to murder, as...
Well, actually, originally, it was referring to Jewish Gentiles. You cannot kill a fellow Hebrew, but anyone else was okay.
No, sir. The commandment is talking about murder. It's not talking about killing. That's the first point. Murder is killing motivated by selfishness, hatred, and revenge. And no Jew who read that commandment thought, oh, God is allowing me to murder Gentiles.
Now, that's a radically different interpretation than what I've been taught at this very university.
Well, then I think you better go back and study the issue for yourself. Study Exodus chapter 20, where we get the 10 commandments. Study the Hebrew there and read in context, and I think it's real clear that the commandment is, you shall not murder, and that meant any human being. You're not allowed to kill them motivated by selfishness, hatred, or revenge. Now, killing is different from murder. If you and I walk into McDonald's and someone's spraying machine gun bullets into children's bodies, if you hit the guy high and I hit him low and we kill him in the process by breaking his neck, that is not murder. That is killing motivated by a drive to prevent the slaughter of innocent people. The commandment in Exodus chapter 20 is not against that. The commandment in Exodus 20 is, you shall not murder. Meaning by that, I am not to kill this man because I'm selfish, I hate his guts, or I'm seeking revenge. But I can promise you, if he pulls out a gun and starts mowing you down, and I hit him as hard as I can in the head and break his neck in the process, that is not murder. That's killing motivated by a drive to preserve the innocent from being slaughtered by this murderer.
How does this interpretation of thou shalt not kill work with the Jewish revolt against the Greeks? The Romans, sorry. I mean, clearly they thought it was okay to kill them.
Yeah, well, I can promise you, the commandment, thou shalt not murder, has nothing to do with Mr. Bush, President Bush, calling the United States Army to stop someone who's slaughtering people. See, that's a different ethical issue. And the Jewish people, in obedience to their commanders at times, fought different countries to preserve their well-being. That's a totally different ethical issue.
So killing is different
from murder, correct?
Well, no, I mean, killing is different in whatever ethical context you find it in?
No. Murder has to do with motive.
Okay, well, the motive of the Jews when they revolted against the Romans, what was the motive there?
Probably a desire for freedom, right?
Well, I don't know. They seem to be doing pretty all right in the first place.
Well, my understanding of the Jewish zealots was they were sick and tired of having the Roman fist pounding them into the ground. They wanted to be free. Now, that's a difficult issue. To be honest with you, the American Revolution is a difficult issue. See, that's an example of a difficult ethical issue for me as a follower of Christ. And it's this: how much evil does a person have to do before I'm justified in killing him? I was speaking in the Bronx one summer, and an African gentleman came up to me and said, "Cliff, I'm a follower of Christ. Why should I not go to South Africa and free my black brothers?" That's a hard question. See, the question is, how much evil has to be perpetrated before I am justified as a follower of Christ in using force to stop the perpetration of the evil? It's a hard issue, isn't it? But I can promise you, I got no problem with a German pastor named Dietrich Bonhoeffer trying to physically stop Adolf Hitler. The man was perpetrating so much slaughter of innocent life that I understand Dietrich Bonhoeffer trying to stop Hitler physically.
It was so hard for everybody else to accept it.
Oh,
The evidence was so plain. Why didn't he rise from the dead and go speak to the Roman soldiers?
You bet. One of the reasons that I trust the New Testament Gospels to be accurate historically is because those Gospels record the doubt, the unbelief, and the sins of Matthew, Mark, John, Peter, Paul. There's a tremendous vulnerability and honesty about how these guys denied Christ, betrayed Christ, deserted Christ. They were not true believers. They were not mesmerized fanatics. They all deserted Christ when he was arrested in the Garden of Gethsemane. I love it. Why? Because that's the way I am. I don't easily believe. I don't easily trust Christ. I doubt it. And I love it that the guys who wrote the New Testament, all of his apostles, were just like me. They doubted. If they all blindly believed and just went along like inept puppies, "Oh, sure, Jesus, whatever you say. Oh, sure, Jesus, whatever you say," I don't think I'd be able to relate to them very well, because that certainly is not the way I am. See, that's one of the refreshing things about the New Testament Gospels. Brutal honesty. One of the leaders of the first century church, Peter, what did he do to Christ when Christ was arrested? He stood beside him, right? "I'm your man, I'm your bud." No, he denied knowing the guy 3 times. A bunch of cowards, just like me. I love it. It's another piece of evidence that those Gospels are not written by true believers, mesmerized fanatics. They're written by real people like you and me that got a bunch of doubts, a bunch of questions.
One more question.
You bet.
You believe God is omniscient, right? I mean,
Omniscient, right?
Yeah, yes. Does he know in advance what's going to happen?
Yes, sir.
Okay. He put the tree in the Garden of Eden, the forbidden fruit.
Yes, sir.
Then, therefore, he knew that Adam and Eve would take from it, yes?
Yes, sir.
Pardon my language, it sounds kind of thing to do. I mean, that's
Okay.
not a very nice guy.
Okay, now the tree of the knowledge of good and evil is simply the decision. You're either going to freely choose to do it my way, or you're going to do it your way.
Right?
In other words, God gave us free will. And free will is real. It's not make-believe.
Right.
I don't have to do it God's way. I can do it my way. Now, sir, that's why people go to hell.
I understand that, but you're saying that he already knew what they were going to choose before they did it. So if he knew they were going to choose it, why did he put it there and say, well, that was your choice, but I mean, I knew you were going to do it anyway, so
Well, the
screw
it,
you.
the it is the issue of free will. The it is not so much a tree, sir. The it is, you either choose to obey me, to trust me, or you choose to distrust me and disobey me. The tree is rather insignificant.
Oh, yeah, I agree. But the point is, he still, whatever, he puts these temptations there, knowing full well that they're going to take them, whether they choose to or not. He knows that they're either not going to do it, or that they're going to do it. He knew that they were going to do it, in that case.
Yeah, and he knows that he knows what I'm going to freely choose to do.
Okay.
And part of that is I'm going to choose to sin in the next year. I'm not going to live a morally perfect life, that's for sure.
It just doesn't seem to make much sense then. I mean, it seems like he wanted to cast them out of the Garden of Eden.
Okay, good. Now, You're raising a very good question, which is, if God's all-knowing, then how can we really have free will? Because he knows in advance what we're going to do.
No, not that he's forcing us to do it, but he knows what we're going to do.
Okay,
What we're going
good.
to choose to do.
Well, then I don't need to answer it. You've answered it already. You're right. He doesn't force us to do it. When we say that God's all-knowing, what we mean is God is outside of the dimension of time. God is eternal. So God sees the year 2000 today. God sees the year 3000 if history goes on that long today. So God's all-knowing, but I'm free. Well, why didn't God cause Hitler's mother to have a miscarriage? I don't know.
No, neither do I. But according, I mean, he had some belief, some purpose in mind for Hitler. I assume by going by your faith. Yes, is that correct? I mean, that's the reason
yes, God
he had
has a
some
purpose for Hitler, but God's purpose for Hitler is not to slaughter Jews. God's purpose for Hitler is to love and worship him and to love and serve people.
But he knew he was going to slaughter all the Jews.
Yeah, God knew that Hitler would abuse his free will and choose to slaughter Jews instead of love Jews. Correct.
It's kind of harsh on the Jewish people. So I mean,
But just because God knows it doesn't mean that he's forcing Hitler to slaughter Jews.
well, going back to the tree, that wasn't something anybody had any choice of. Either nobody else put that tree there except for God. Nobody else. I mean, it's irrelevant if it's a tree or whatever.
Right.
But I mean, the fact is that nobody else. There was no other people around to make the choice to put the tree there. That was
Okay.
God's choice. That was
Yes.
His will to put the tree
Yes.
there. Okay.
Right.
Whether I choose to commit a sin later, that was my choice. The options were presented by myself, by other people. But you know, there was nobody else there. He put that tree there. He said, "Eat from it, and you're out." Or maybe he didn't say that, but that was
No, you're
what
right.
he knew was going to happen.
Right?
Yeah, he put it there, and he put it there. Nobody else presented them with that option. It was him.
Well, sir, you and I are in the same position Adam and Eve were in. A student at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, put it beautifully. He said, Cliff, I didn't ask to have to decide whether to go to heaven or hell. And I resent God putting me in a position where I have to make that decision. And I said, sir, you're right. I didn't ask to be put in this position either. But now you've been dealt a hand of cards. Play the game as well as you can. Do the best you can. And don't just complain, well, I didn't have any decision about whether to put myself in a place where I'd have to make this kind of decision.
Okay. I mean, I understand
God's
that.
given you your sexuality. God's given me my sexuality. Now, God says, here is the way I want you to express your sexuality. And you and I have to decide whether we're going to say yes or no. Now, you and I didn't ask to have to make that decision.
What exactly are you referring to? But,
You have a sex drive, I have a sex drive.
Right.
Jesus has revealed that the purpose of our sexuality is to make a lifelong commitment to one person if we're going to choose to be married, and then to enjoy sex within that lifelong commitment. Now, you and I can indulge in fornication, bisexuality, homosexuality, bestiality. We can have sex with a vibrator. There are a lot of options out there. But God says, do it this way. And I have to make a decision. No, I'm not going to do it your way. I'm going to do it my way, or yes, I'll do it your way. I didn't ask to have to make that decision.
right.
You're right. God has given me the ability to make money. I can hoard all my money for myself, or I can give some of my money away to God's unfed children. I don't have to do either. But I can promise you, Jesus says, Cliff, you better write big checks, son. You better write some big checks to help some hurting people. I don't have to do it, but Jesus is going to hold me responsible.
The idea of something just existing forever and that's just what it was. That's just kind of strange.
No, there are only 4 options that I know of. If you know a 5th, please tell me.
I just don't see that level of order just existing for an eternity. I would think that it seems to make, I don't know, everything's moving in a certain direction, and if you move it backwards in your head, then it's all like in one place. And I mean, who knows exactly what happened before?
Right. Okay, so it's more a philosophical question. In the beginning, there's nothing. In the beginning, there's matter and energy. In the beginning, there's an intelligent mind who creates this world and sets it ticking and withdraws. In the beginning, there's an intelligent mind who creates this complex watch, but actually wants to be involved. Now, which of those 4 options, or if you know of a 5th and 6th one, please tell me, which one do you think makes most sense? What's most reasonable? What's most plausible?
I would probably say the matter and energy one.
Okay, and the reason I can't agree with you is because I know that this man has the ability to love her, she has the ability to love her, I have the ability to love them, and you cannot put love in a test tube. There's more to love than matter and energy. There's this innate human ability to genuinely care for somebody.
But what if it was discovered, like, although I know that neuroscience isn't like far enough along to where they could actually prove this, but what if it was discovered that that was just like a result of an extremely complex series of processes going on in your head that are actually physically based?
Well, what if it was discovered that I'm just a bad dream you're having?
Well, I doubt that.
It's possible. Anything's possible.
No, but you see,
But you see what you just did to me. You said, well, what if it is one day discovered that? Come on, bud.
Okay.
How can I, as a thinking human being, deal with that? That is such a faith statement. There's just no basis for it.
Statement.
What?
It was, what if, okay. Yes, just like hypothetically.
Yeah, incredibly hypothetical.
Okay, but it would, once this was found, which I would think that it most likely is, because we're discovering that certain chemicals do certain things to our brains all the time, that scientifically you could test different things.
Uh-huh.
You test it and it comes out, and I mean, you see what I'm saying? It would be a testable thing. It wouldn't be like a what if thing.
Then I go up to this guy, punch him in the face. You say, hey man, why'd you hit this guy? And I say, well, obviously my biochemical reactions forced me to hit him. So why would you hold me responsible for hitting him in the face if you understand I don't have a free will? I'm just a highly complex biochemical reaction. If I date rape this woman, why would you hold me responsible for that? I'm going to say to you, it's just a biochemical reaction. I just have a sex drive that just made me do it.
Well, I mean, maybe that's not really the way I want to view it, but at the same time, if that was what the case was and we were just really nothing more than really complex chemical reactions,
right,
then we could say that we want to stop your reaction because it's trying to harm other reactions.
Oh, no. You'd stop my reaction because you have to stop my reaction because that's your biochemical makeup.
Sure.
See, there is no free will then.
That's true.
There is no such thing as love. There's simply complex biochemical reactions.
Okay.
Now, I'm sorry, my experience of life totally contradicts that. My experience of life is that with this guy who was standing here before, I could have really ripped into him. And I have done it on times before. That guy was so rude, he was so poor in his thinking, it was embarrassing. But I can try and be patient. I can try and be somewhat respectful to a rascal like him. Or I can just light into him. And then tonight, when I sit on my bedside, I can judge myself. And I can say, Cliff, when you were disrespectful and rude, that was wrong. Don't do that again. Cliff, when you were patient and respectful with a guy who was really playing games, from your perspective, and was really making no sense, it was good the way you were patient with him.
Okay.
See, my ability to judge myself shows me that I'm more than a biochemical reaction.
What if that's just like a property that develops through these reactions? Like,
yeah, but there still is no free will then. If you reduce me to simply a complex biochemical reaction, then although it might be incredibly complex, which I agree with you, I'm still a machine. I am a machine, a
throughout
computer.
like the world, there's properties that develop with increasing complexity.
Yes.
Like throughout biology.
Right.
So
We understand that
could be a-
complexity better and better as we do good science.
Well, yeah, and when the complexity increases to a certain level, then other properties form. And maybe free will could be a property. You don't think so?
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
It's impossible if you
Flat out
reduce
impossible. There's no
if you
way.
reduce reality to matter and energy. You've reduced reality. It's not me who's doing it, it's you doing it. Which means we are machines. There's no me that is separate from the machine. There's simply the machine. See, in order for there to be free will, there's got to be a me that stands separate from my biochemical reaction. There's got to be a soul.
What if that was a development of your society that you live in? Like,
Good.
Society doesn't think it's good for you to rape people, so that's where you get that measure of what you should and shouldn't do.
You bet. Then I am still a machine that has been programmed by my environment.
Sure.
And that's why a visiting professor at Harvard, when he asked his history class, who is responsible for the Holocaust, all those Harvard students said, nobody's responsible for the Holocaust, because we all are simply machines.
You've been talking a lot about free will and stuff, and about, if I can get this right, justification or innocence through ignorance. You're talking about people that didn't know who Jesus was, and they're still regarded to be in favor with God. Like, then why do Christians go around the world telling people about Jesus when, if that's true,
Right.
then I mean, why do I bother leaving my home to go tell people?
You bet. I go to the mission field for the same reason that I come to the University of Florida. For the same reason that in my neighborhood where I live, I seek to communicate Christ to my neighbors. And that's because, for a reason that I don't understand, God chooses to communicate his love and his truth through people. Now, obviously, Hebrews chapter 11 teaches that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Moses, Rahab, a Gentile prostitute, people who never heard about Christ, are going to be in heaven. Well, why are they going to be in heaven? Because they put their faith in God. They responded to all the information that God gave them. And yet, for a reason that I don't understand, God chooses to communicate through people. I mean, if I were God, I'd probably do it just angels. I'd have a bunch of angels down here at University of Florida. But for a reason that I don't understand, God chooses to use people to communicate the truth of Christ to other people.
I think it's possible. I think people can be deluded enough to believe anything.
Fine. So what you have is,
Perhaps they went
you've
and they
got
saw an empty tomb.
a bunch of guys
They
saying,
felt that
I saw Jesus risen from the dead. I ate with a guy. I talked with a guy. I put my hands in the nail prints in his hands. I saw the wound in his side. They making all of that up, and then they're willing to die to cover up what they know to be a lie. Or you're saying they're deluded. So they get so specific about their eyewitness accounts about the risen Christ. It's incredible. Just read the Gospels.
But exactly, that's all in the Gospels. Who wrote the accounts of that trial?
Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Peter, Paul, James.
Weren't they the ones? Who was killed then in that trial?
Which trial?
Who was killed? Who was asked and then killed?
Who was asked and then killed? James, the brother of John, was put to death by the sword. Peter, Andrew, Philip, Simon the Zealot, James, son of Alphaeus, Bartholomew were crucified to crosses. Matthew was put to death by the sword, who wrote the Gospel of Matthew. Thaddeus was shot through with arrows, and James, the younger brother of Jesus, was stoned to death. Why? Because they claimed Jesus had risen from the dead, he is Lord, and we're not going to buy into emperor worship, which was a common way to unify the Roman Empire in the first century. So they lost their lives. Why? Because they claimed to have seen Jesus risen from the dead. That's why they died.
The Christ that you say any more than the evidence states that if I were to die for you, I am the Christ.
Okay, the evidence that points to Jesus being the truth is his sinless life, his tremendous ethical teachings, his death where, nailed to a wooden crossbeam, instead of cursing his enemies the way I probably would have, he prayed, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. But fourthly, and most importantly, 3 days after he died, he physically, bodily rose from the dead. And over a period of 40 days, he appeared to over 500 people who saw him risen from the dead. That's why I trust Jesus. I can't prove him, you're absolutely correct, I can't prove him. But the overwhelming evidence is Jesus Christ is reliable. That's why I take a step of faith and trust in him. Now, would you
Why?
give me an
Because
option?
he's reliable?
Pardon?
Because he's reliable?
Yes. I trust people who are reliable, who give me evidence that they're credible and reliable. And the reason that I trust Jesus Christ is because the overwhelming evidence is he is reliable in a way that none of the options are. Give me a better option for my faith in Jesus.
you want to have eternal happiness,
Yeah,
there's no more sure way in your mind. You're as sure as anyone can be
right.
until you actually die and experience.
That's right. I can't prove that I'm going to heaven. I'm convinced I'm going to heaven because Jesus promised eternal life to everyone who trusts in him, and the evidence is Jesus doesn't lie. The evidence is Jesus said, I'm going to die and rise from the dead. And the historical evidence is he pulled it off. Ma'am, I can promise you, if you die and rise from the dead, I will listen very, very carefully to everything you have to say. Why? Because the evidence is you are amazingly reliable.
So, does everyone listen to everything Lazarus said?
Well, Lazarus didn't raise himself from the dead. It was Jesus who raised Lazarus from the dead. And yes, Lazarus put his faith in Christ. And when Thomas saw Jesus risen from the dead, Thomas hit the floor and said, my Lord and my God. Why? Because the evidence was Jesus is reliable. He was dead. He's risen from the dead.
So basically you're saying like mass hallucinations.
No. The resurrection appearances of Christ, when you read the Gospels, are clearly not mass hallucinations. In Luke chapter 24, when Jesus appears risen from the dead to his apostles, they think we're hallucinating. And Jesus walks right up to them and says, grab hold of me and see. A spirit does not have flesh and bone the way you see I have. Give me some food to eat it. And so he ate food in front of them. So he was dealing with that precise, excellent question you're raising. Hey, it's all hallucination. And Jesus says, no, it's really me. I have really risen from the dead. Now, what do you think about Jesus Christ? Who do you think he was?
I don't really know. I haven't studied the Bible or anything that much, but I believe he probably was a great man that touched obviously thousands and thousands of people in a very profound way. Now, whether he was the Son of God and whether he actually was resurrected and this and that, I have no idea. I would, if I was to guess, I would say no, just because of my secular beliefs, but I don't know for sure.
Okay, why do you hold secular beliefs?
Why do I hold secular beliefs? Because I've formed them based on everything that I've been able to take in my short 23 years.
What is love according to your secular beliefs?
Well, to be consistent, I have a very difficult time defining that too. It's a feeling, and it can be different for a lot of people. Love for one person could be totally different than love for another person. So,
but if your secular view is right, then love is simply a biochemical reaction, maybe very complex, but if there is no supernatural God, then love is simply a biochemical reaction.
I think I could simplify it to that. I could agree with that.
So, when she looks you in the face and says, I love you, you understand what that means is there are some biochemical reactions going off in my body, and I use the word love to describe these biochemical reactions. That's all it is.
Body and mind and, and my future plans for you and all those things compiled for this word that we've chosen, yeah.
Uh-huh. In fact, if you keep on thinking about it, you begin to realize we don't have free will. Free will is an illusion if your secular worldview is right. Because free will implies that I have a personality, a will that goes beyond the biochemical reactions. There's actually an I. But if we embrace the secular worldview, we understand, no, there's no I. There's simply complex biochemical reactions. I am a machine. Complex as all get out, but I'm just a machine.
It's something but I think just because there's something that we can't explain, it doesn't mean you have to go to a default explanation such as or God or whatever your default explanation for that thing is. I can't explain it, but that doesn't mean that your explanation is correct either.
Yeah, but the pickle that you're in is you have already reduced reality with your secular worldview. Your secular worldview has crossed off God, and you've said everything's matter and energy. Fine. You've done the reductionism, not me. Now, if what you say is true, that everything is matter and energy, then there is no I, there's no me that goes beyond the complex biochemical reactions.
I agree.
And everything that this body does is simply a result of the complex biochemical reactions programming me a certain way.
Yeah.
Therefore, if I go up and kick him in the jaw, and you ask me, why did you do it? And I say, because I had to do it. My biochemical reactions programmed me to go up and kick him in the jaw. What do you say to me?
You should get a better hold of your complex biochemical reactions.
But there's no need to get a hold of the complex biochemical reactions, because remember, you have reduced me to simply biochemical reactions.
No, I haven't reduced it. I think there is an I. I just can't explain the I to you. But just because I can't explain the I to you, doesn't mean that I agree with your personal concept of the I either. So
Yes,
I think there is an I that controlled that kick. It's just I'm not wise enough to explain that I to you, neither scientifically or philosophically.
Yes, but the problem is the secularist has already limited reality to matter and energy.
Well, this particular secularist hasn't. I think there is more to that I, and I just can't explain it, nor can I explain it through any particular religion at this point.
Well, sir, my point is simple. The only way there can be an I, a free will, is if there is something more to me than simple matter and energy.
Okay.
There's got to be some type of soul, some type of personality, some type of individuality. And the only way that can exist is if there's more to reality than matter and energy. And secularism limits reality to matter and energy. That's the whole point of evolution as an origin. The whole point of evolution as an origin is there is no God. We're just matter and energy evolved to a higher order. The problem is your experience of love, your experience of free will, your experience of moral absolutes violates that worldview so violently. What do you think about a guy battering his wife? Do you think that's okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Then you're being consistent. Okay, and I'm standing out here saying, for a man to batter his wife is absolutely wrong. And if you try and batter your wife, I'm going to do everything within my power to communicate to you, stop it. And then I will also go and call the police. And if needs be, I will try and physically intervene. Why? Because I'm convinced that that woman has an innate value and dignity, and someone battering her is absolutely evil. Now, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe everything's relative. But if I believe what you say, that everything's relative, then I have no business stopping a guy from battering his wife. That's his definition of good. And if I believe that everything's relative, I can't be so arrogant as to tell a man, stop battering your wife. That's his trip.
All right, but what about her trip? I mean, what if she's not happy with it?
Well, live and let live. It's everybody's own decision. See, moral relativism is an intellectual option. It's a practical impossibility. If you're a moral relativist, just think about your position on battered wives, abused children, homosexual rights, and abortion rights. And if you're a moral relativist, whatever your position is on those 4 points, you have to acknowledge that the opposite of your position is equally valid. I don't think you live that way.
No, I do, exactly.
You do live that way?
Yeah. Absolutely. Adamantly. And my goal in life is to give everybody the freedom that I think that they deserve. Freedom to be evil or the freedom to be good. Like, whatever.
Good. And you and I would fundamentally disagree there. I don't call it freedom to be evil. I call that moral license.
I missed you on that.
All right? For you to whoop up on a woman is not freedom. It's moral license. It's being irresponsible.
Okay.
For you to put machine gun bullets into the bodies of children in a McDonald's is not moral freedom. That's moral license. And I will seek to stop you. Not because I'm arrogant, because I think that my morality is better than yours, but because I am convinced that those little children in whose bodies you're spraying machine gun bullets have an intrinsic, innate value because they're created in the image of God. Okay. And when you put the machine gun bullets in their bodies, not only do you harm them, but you possibly are killing them, right. And that's an attack on a person, and it's an attack on the God in whose image that person's created.
Okay, I think I also have an intrinsic value. Nothing to do with like being godly or anything, but just by being alive and being able to feel pain. And I will try probably harder than you would to stop that person.
Like Satan is this world.
Why?
But one thing is very clear.
Okay, even if it only is because it makes me feel bad to see little kids being hurt. Maybe it's completely selfish.
Good.
It doesn't matter.
But then if you're a moral relativist, you've got to acknowledge that obviously the guy who's spraying the machine gun bullets in the little children's bodies is obviously getting a thrill from it. That's why he's doing it. So it's just your thrill versus his thrill.
Right.
Now my point is, I don't think you really believe that. Do you? Do you really live that out consistently?
I believe that both are saying.
Live what out exactly?
God would not.
That if a guy rapes, well, that's his pathway to thrill in life.
Uh-huh.
And that is just as legitimate as your path, which is, no, you don't rape.
Right.
Do you think that those are both equally legitimate paths in life?
Legitimate?
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, I argue that for a guy to rape a woman is illegitimate. It's evil. It's wrong.
Okay.
It's an abuse of the power that they have.